I never imagined that telling the truth would cost me my entire family.
On the day I needed them most, they didn't offer a hand. They offered a closed door because I was pregnant.
I spent that night in my car, hand on my stomach, wondering how love could be so temporary. I wasn't their daughter anymore. I was a stain on their reputation. But this isn't just a story about losing everything. It's about how I outlived the shame. This is my story of survival.
I never imagined my life would split into a before and after based on a single truth. There was a version of me that still believed family meant safety, and then there was the version that learned love could be conditional, fragile, and brutally temporary. I didn't wake up that morning planning to lose my parents. I woke up thinking honesty might finally set me free. For weeks, the weight inside me wasn't just physical. It sat in my chest, in my throat, in every breath I took. I carried a secret that grew louder every day, a truth I could no longer hide behind oversized hoodies and forced smiles. I kept telling myself that once I said it out loud, once it was real in the open, things would settle. I believed my parents might be angry, disappointed, maybe even cold for a while, but I never thought they would erase me. Growing up, I had always been the one who tried to do everything right. I followed rules, met expectations, swallowed my own wants just to keep peace. I learned early that approval was earned, not given. Love came with strings attached, and I spent my entire life making sure I never pulled the wrong one. That's why this felt like the ultimate betrayal, not just to them, but to myself. I had crossed a line I didn't even know was marked with permanent ink. The house I grew up in never felt warm, but it felt familiar. Silence lived in the walls, judgment lingered in the air, and perfection was the only language spoken. I had rehearsed this moment 100 times in my head, each version ending differently. Sometimes they softened, sometimes they forgave, sometimes they walked away but came back later. None of my imagined endings prepared me for the reality of what it feels like to become unwanted in your own family. When I finally said it, when the truth existed outside my body, everything inside that house changed instantly. The air felt heavier, like it was pressing down on my lungs. I realized in that moment how fragile my place in their world really was. I wasn't their daughter anymore. I was a problem, a mistake, a stain they didn't want attached to their name. There was no explosion, no dramatic scene, no tears that softened the moment. What hurt the most was how quiet it was. The absence of emotion felt louder than screaming. I could feel the distance forming, stretching wider with every second that passed. It was like watching a door close in slow motion, knowing once it shut, there would be no handle on my side. I walked out of that house with my body shaking and my mind numb. I didn't cry right away. I couldn't. Shock wrapped itself around me like a thick blanket, muting everything. I stood outside feeling homeless before I ever lost a roof. I had just been disowned, and the word echoed in my head like a curse. Disowned, as if love could be revoked, as if I had violated some unspoken contract that made me disposable. That night was the loneliest night of my life. I sat in my car for hours, staring at nothing, trying to understand how quickly everything had fallen apart. My phone stayed silent. No calls, no messages, no "we'll talk later." It was as if I had died to them in real time. And that realization broke something inside me that never fully healed. I thought about my childhood, about every moment I had tried to be enough. I replayed birthdays, holidays, fake smiles for family photos. I wondered if any of it had been real, or if I was only loved as long as I played my role perfectly. I felt stupid for believing blood meant unconditional love. I felt naive for thinking pregnancy was something that could ever be separated from shame in their eyes. The fear didn't hit me all at once. It crept in slowly. Fear of the future, fear of being alone, fear of raising a child without the people who raised me. I wasn't just abandoned, I was suddenly responsible for a life growing inside me while my own foundation crumbled. The irony was brutal. At the moment I needed family the most, I had none. I slept in my car that night, curled up in the driver's seat, my hand resting on my stomach like a silent promise. The world outside felt massive and indifferent. The streets were quiet, but my thoughts were screaming. I realized I couldn't go back, not just because I wasn't welcome, but because something had shifted inside me. I had seen their love end, and I would never be able to unsee it. Morning came too fast. The sun rose like nothing had happened, like my entire life had imploded hours earlier. I sat there watching people go to work, families loading kids into cars, normal life continuing without me. That's when the reality truly sunk in. I was on my own now, pregnant, disowned, alone in a world that suddenly felt cold and unforgiving. But beneath the fear, beneath the heartbreak, something else stirred quietly. A survival instinct I didn't know I had. A strange clarity. I realized if my parents could abandon me so easily, then I owed it to myself and to the life inside me to survive without them. I didn't know how yet. I didn't have a plan. All I had was the understanding that this story wasn't over. That was the night I stopped being just someone's daughter. That was the night I became something else entirely. The days after that night blurred together in a way that felt unreal, like I was watching my life through a cracked screen. Time moved forward, but I stayed frozen in the same emotional wreckage. I woke up each morning not knowing where I belonged, carrying my body and my future from one place to another like unfinished luggage. The silence from my parents didn't fade, it hardened. It became permanent deniable proof that I was no longer part of their world. I learned quickly how invisible a person can become. People passed me every day without noticing the weight I carried, without noticing the fear that lived behind my eyes. I blended into parking lots, bus stops, borrowed couches, and corners of spaces that were never meant to be temporary homes. The world didn't stop for me. It didn't soften. It didn't care that I was breaking apart quietly.
My name is Catherine, and I am 25 years. If stories like this resonate with you, hit that subscribe button to show your support. Thank you in anticipation.
Pregnancy changes your body in ways no one warns you about when you're already unstable. Every ache felt amplified. Every wave of nausea felt like a punishment stacked on top of another. I was exhausted all the time, not just physically, but emotionally drained from pretending I was okay. I mastered the art of acting normal because vulnerability felt dangerous when you had nowhere to fall. I stopped answering calls from people who still knew me as the old version of myself. I didn't want pity. I didn't want questions. I didn't want to explain how quickly everything had collapsed. Shame wrapped itself around me tighter than fear ever had. I felt exposed, like my existence had become something embarrassing, something people whispered about but never helped fix. There were moments when I questioned my worth entirely. I replayed everything in my head, searching for the exact point where I became unlovable. I wondered if I deserved the abandonment, if I had somehow earned it by choosing a life that didn't align with their expectations. The guilt was heavy, irrational, and relentless. It convinced me that maybe this pain was simply the cost of being honest. Public spaces became uncomfortable. I felt eyes on me, even when no one was looking. Every interaction felt loaded, like the world could sense that I didn't belong anywhere. I avoided mirrors because I didn't recognize myself anymore. My face looked older, harder, shaped by stress and nights without sleep. The girl who once believed family was forever felt like a stranger. I tried to find stability in small things, a hot shower when I could, a quiet corner where I could sit without being asked to leave, simple meals that reminded me I was still alive. Survival became my full-time job. Dreams didn't exist anymore. Long-term plans felt like a joke. Everything narrowed down to one goal: make it through the day. There were nights when fear swallowed me whole. I lay awake imagining worst-case scenarios, imagining myself failing, not just myself, but the life growing inside me. The responsibility felt crushing. I wasn't just fighting for me anymore. I was fighting for someone who hadn't even taken their first breath yet. That realization both terrified and grounded me. I noticed how quickly compassion disappears when you no longer fit society's idea of acceptable. I wasn't a success story. I wasn't inspirational. I was inconvenient. I was a reminder that life doesn't always follow clean timelines, and the world doesn't like reminders that make it uncomfortable. Still, something inside me refused to shut down completely. Even on my weakest days, there was a quiet voice reminding me that I was still here, still breathing, still capable of moving forward, even if I had no idea where forward actually was. That voice didn't sound confident or hopeful. It sounded stubborn, and sometimes stubbornness was enough. I began to understand that abandonment doesn't always come loudly. Sometimes it comes through absence, through unanswered messages, through people choosing comfort over compassion. It reshapes you. It forces you to confront who you are when no one is watching, when no one is rooting for you. And that confrontation is brutal. I stopped waiting for apologies that would never come. I stopped hoping for a message that would magically undo everything. Acceptance didn't come easily, but it crept in slowly, disguised as exhaustion. I was too tired to keep hurting myself by expecting love from people who had already walked away.
There were moments of deep loneliness that felt unbearable. Moments when I wished, just for a second, that someone would tell me I wasn't alone. But those moments passed, and I passed with them. I learned that strength doesn't always look powerful. Sometimes it looks like getting up when you don't want to. Sometimes it looks like choosing not to give up, even when giving up feels easier. By the end of that chapter of my life, I wasn't healed. I wasn't strong. I wasn't confident. But I was still standing. And in a world that had turned its back on me, that alone felt like an act of rebellion. I didn't know it yet, but this was only the beginning of something far more painful and far more transformative. The hardest part wasn't losing my parents. It was learning how to exist without the version of myself that believed I needed them to survive. By the time my body began to feel heavier, my soul already was. Late pregnancy didn't arrive gently for me. It arrived like a reminder that time was moving forward whether I was ready or not. Every day felt like a countdown I wasn't prepared for. My stomach grew, my options shrank, and the silence around me deepened. I had never felt so exposed, so visible and invisible at the same time. Rock bottom isn't always dramatic. It doesn't always come with a single moment where everything collapses at once. For me, it came slowly, through exhaustion, through mornings where getting out of bed felt pointless, through nights where fear wrapped around me tighter than any blanket ever could. I was running on survival mode for so long that I forgot what hope even felt like. There were days I hated myself for still being alive, not because I wanted to disappear, but because existing felt like a constant reminder of everything I had lost. I carried guilt like a second heartbeat. Guilt for disappointing my parents. Guilt for not being strong enough. Guilt for bringing a child into a world where I couldn't even secure my own stability. That guilt ate away at me quietly, day after day. I started to feel detached from everything, from my body, from my emotions, from the future. I moved through life like a ghost, present, but not really here. People spoke to me and I nodded, but nothing truly landed. My mind was always somewhere else, usually stuck replaying the moment my family erased me, or spiraling into fear about what came next. Late at night, when everything was quiet, the thoughts got loud. I questioned every decision I had ever made.
I wondered if love was ever real or just something people used when it benefited them. I wondered if I would ever feel safe again. And the scariest thought of all crept in those hours. Maybe this was all my life would ever be. My body ached constantly. Sleep was broken and restless. Hunger came and went, replaced by anxiety that sat heavy in my stomach. I felt fragile, like one wrong move would completely shatter me. And yet, every morning, I still woke up. That fact alone confused me. I didn't feel brave. I didn't feel strong. I just felt tired. What hurt the most wasn't the lack of support. It was the realization that I had been loved only under conditions. That truth changed the way I saw everything. Family, relationships, even myself. I stopped believing I was inherently worthy of care. I started believing love had to be earned, even in moments when you were at your most vulnerable. There were moments I broke down completely. Moments where I sat alone, overwhelmed by fear and grief, feeling like I had failed at life. I cried until my body shook, until I had nothing left. And then, somehow, I pulled myself together again. Not because I felt better, but because I had no other choice. Something strange happened during that lowest point. As much as I hated myself, as much as I felt like I had nothing left, I also realized I was still here without anyone saving me. No parents, no safety net, no reassurance. Just me. And that realization, as terrifying as it was, planted a seed I didn't recognize at the time. I began to notice small shifts. I stopped expecting the world to be kind. I stopped waiting for someone to rescue me. My mindset slowly changed from why is this happening to me to how do I survive this? That shift didn't feel empowering, it felt necessary, like an instinct kicking in when you're drowning. I started doing things differently, not dramatically, not confidently, but deliberately. I paid attention to my body. I forced myself to eat, to rest when I could, to protect my energy. I spoke to myself differently, even when I didn't believe the words yet. I reminded myself that quitting wasn't an option anymore, not because I was strong, but because I was responsible. For the first time, I began to feel a connection to the life growing inside me that wasn't rooted in fear. It wasn't magical or romantic, it was grounding. It reminded me that I wasn't completely alone, even if the world had abandoned me. That connection became my anchor during moments when I felt like I was slipping away.
I didn't suddenly become hopeful. I didn't forgive anyone. I didn't heal overnight. But I reached the bottom and realized something important. It didn't destroy me. It stripped me down, yes. It humbled me. It exposed every weakness I had. But it also showed me that I was capable of surviving pain I once thought would end me. Rock bottom changed me. It made me quieter, sharper, more aware. It forced me to face myself without distractions, without approval, without validation. And even though I hated that version of myself at first, I slowly started to respect her. She had been through hell and still chose to keep going. By the end of that phase, I wasn't healed, but I was awake. Awake to the truth that I didn't need permission to exist. Awake to the reality that my worth wasn't defined by who accepted me or rejected me. Awake to the possibility that my story wasn't over yet. I didn't know it then, but the pain that almost broke me was about to become the foundation of a strength I never asked for but desperately needed. The moment my child came into the world, something inside me shifted forever. It wasn't dramatic or cinematic the way people talk. It was quiet, overwhelming, and grounding all at once. In that instant, my life stopped being about what I had lost and started being about what I had created. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was becoming someone new. Everything I had endured suddenly took on a different meaning. The abandonment, the loneliness, the fear. It no longer defined me as broken. It defined me as tested. I looked back at the girl I had been before all of this, the one who believed love could disappear if you disappointed the wrong people.
and I felt something close to compassion. She didn't fail. She was never weak. She was simply raised in a world where affection came with conditions. Motherhood didn't fix me. It didn't erase the trauma or magically turn pain into purpose. What it did was force clarity. I could no longer afford to carry shame, and that wasn't mine. I could no longer measure my worth by the silence of people who chose reputation over relationship. Holding my child made one thing painfully clear. Love should never feel like something you can lose for telling the truth. The days after were hard, exhausting, raw, but they were honest in a way my past never was. I learned how strong you become when there's no one left to impress. I learned how freeing it is to stop chasing approval from people who never intended to give it freely. I didn't need closure from my parents anymore. Their absence had already said everything. I thought about them sometimes, not with anger, but with a distant sadness. Not because I missed them, but because I understood them. I understood how fear controls people, how image can matter more than integrity, how love can shrink when it's rooted in control instead of compassion. Understanding didn't mean forgiveness, it meant release. I built a life quietly, piece by piece. Not the life I had imagined, but one that was real, stable, and mine. I surrounded myself with people who didn't need explanations, who didn't weaponize my past against me. I learned to trust slowly, carefully. I stopped apologizing for existing. There were moments when the past tried to pull me back, moments when old wounds reopened unexpectedly, but they didn't own me anymore. I had faced the worst and survived it. That knowledge stayed with me like armor. I no longer feared abandonment because I had already lived through it, and it didn't destroy me. I stopped defining family by blood. I stopped believing love had to hurt to be real. I rewrote my understanding of what belonging meant, and for the first time in my life, I felt grounded. Not because everything was perfect, but because it was honest. If my parents ever think about me, I hope they see strength instead of shame. Not because I need their validation, but because the truth deserves to be recognized. I didn't ruin my life by being honest. I didn't lose my family by becoming pregnant. I didn't fail. They chose to walk away, and I chose to keep going. This story isn't about revenge. It's about survival. It's about learning that the deepest betrayals often come from the people who were supposed to protect you. And it's about realizing that losing conditional love is sometimes the only way to find real, unconditional strength. I am not the girl who was disowned. I am the woman who outlived it.